Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time we're going to be tackling one of the most potent cards in the tarot deck, the Magician.
Ooh, yes.
And when you think Magician, you might think
Yeah.
magic tricks, pulling rabbits out of a hat.
Yeah.
But we're going to go a little bit deeper than that today.
Okay.
It's all about understanding and using your own personal power.
And the fact that it is key one in most decks, the Magician is,
Right.
that's very significant. I mean, it's not just some random placement. It suggests foundational principles, a starting point for anyone looking to understand themselves better through tarot.
So if the Magician was like a person walking around today, who would they be?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'd imagine someone who can blend science and creativity seamlessly, like those ancient Egyptian priests of Thoth. They use geometry to build sacred spaces. Talk about powerful architecture.
Oh, yeah. It's like they're not just building structures, they're building realities.
Yeah.
And that makes me think of Hermes, the god who was associated with both magic and communication.
Yeah.
Is that connection as strong as it feels like it is?
Absolutely. Hermes, also known as Mercury, was the messenger god, right? The communicator.
Right.
And what's fascinating is that Hermes wasn't the source of the messages, he was just the brilliant deliverer.
Ah.
So that's key to understanding the Magician. A conduit for power, not necessarily the originator.
So you're saying it's more about channeling existing energy than like conjuring it out of thin air.
Precisely. Like that point made in one of those articles we read about the Magician, the true power lies in the Magician's ability to tap into something larger and then direct that energy.
Now, we can't ignore all the tools the Magician has laid out on this table. We got the wand, the cup, the sword, and the pentacle.
Mm-hmm.
And those are all, classic tarot suits.
Mm-hmm.
But it feels like there's something more to them than just being like a symbol.
Right, right. They are linked to the four essential elements: fire, wand, water, cup, air, sword, and earth, pentacle. And think about it. I mean, we need these elements to survive, right? Warmth, sustenance, breath, food from the ground.
Right. So the Magician is not just like this mystical figure.
No.
He's grounded in the reality of what we need to exist.
Exactly. But here's where it gets really interesting. These tools also have occult interpretations. The wand represents will, the cup symbolizes emotions, the sword is about intellect, and the pentacle signifies material wealth.
Okay.
It's like these tools are for both the practical and the spiritual.
One of the things that really stood out to me in the research was the emphasis on silence. Why is that?
Oh, silence.
Yeah.
Silence is a powerful tool, often overlooked,
Yeah.
especially in our noisy world, right?
Yeah.
It's about discretion, not just blabbing about your knowledge or your intentions. For the Magician, silence adds to their mystique. It's part of how they wield power.
And it's not even necessarily about keeping secrets.
No.
It's about conserving your energy
Exactly.
and choosing your words carefully.
Exactly. The Magician reminds us that true power often lies in restraint and focused intention.
Now, looking at the Magician's double-pointed wand, I can't help but think about this duality of creation and destruction.
Right.
Right?
That's a great observation. The Magician can initiate life and bring about endings. It's a powerful reminder that the ability to create also comes with the responsibility to know when to let go, when to dismantle what no longer serves.
And this whole idea of choice is also reflected in his clothing, right?
Yeah.
He has this red robe, which is all about passion and action.
Yeah.
But there's no belt.
Precisely. It's like the Magician can engage with their power fully, but also step back when needed. That lack of a belt symbolizes freedom of movement, the ability to choose how and when to use that power.
So it's not just about having the power. It's about having the self-awareness to wield it responsibly. But how does this all translate when we actually see the Magician in a tarot reading?
Oh, that's where it gets, nuanced. First off, for those unfamiliar with tarot, cards can appear upright or reversed. So the upright Magician often represents resourcefulness, that go-getter energy, taking action towards your goals.
So like a green light from the universe saying, you got this, make it happen.
Exactly.
Oh.
But when reversed, the Magician can point to blocked potential. Maybe you're doubting yourself, or even worse, misusing your power,
Oh.
for selfish reasons.
So that's a good reminder that power without integrity can be pretty dangerous.
Absolutely. And it reinforces the idea that self-awareness is crucial for anyone trying to embody the Magician's positive energy.
So if I'm feeling like stuck or uninspired, how can I actually tap into that Magician energy in my daily life? Because it all feels very abstract right now.
That's a question we all grapple with. The magician reminds us that we are not passive observers in our own lives, but active participants with the power to shape our realities. It's not about waiting for a magic wand to appear. You are the magician.
Yeah.
And just like the magician have their tools laid out, we all have our unique set of skills and talents.
So the first step is like figuring out what tools are in our kit, so to speak.
Exactly. The magician is all about intention and action. What do you want to create in your life? Once you have that clear vision, it's time to start taking steps towards making it a reality.
Yeah, and I can see how that ties into the magician's, resourcefulness and that kind of can-do attitude. It's not about waiting for the perfect moment. It's about taking action.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to be creative, to think outside the box. Remember, the magician is a master of innovation. So explore new possibilities and don't be afraid to experiment.
And that reminds me of that infinity symbol
Yeah.
above the magician's head. We talked about it earlier, but it feels relevant here. It's like a reminder that we have infinite potential within us.
Right. The lemniscate, that infinity symbol, is a powerful reminder that we are not limited by our circumstances.
Yeah.
There's a whole universe of possibilities waiting to be unlocked if we tap into our own inner magician.
And speaking of possibilities, we see the magician standing in a lush garden,
Yes.
which is like such a stark contrast to the barren landscape of the Fool card we talked about before.
Right.
What's the significance of that imagery?
The garden is a potent symbol of growth, fertility, and the subconscious mind. It represents the potential for manifestation, the abundance that's available to us when we align our intentions with our actions.
So it's not enough to just like daydream about our goals. We have to actively cultivate our inner landscape to actually make them grow.
You got it.
Yeah.
Remember how we talked about the magician as an architect? Well, they're also a gardener, tending to their inner world with care and intention.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
And the roses and lilies in the garden,
Yes,
those must have a deeper meaning as well.
absolutely. The red roses symbolize passion and creative inspiration.
Yeah.
They represent the fuel that drives us towards our goals.
Yeah. And the white lilies, I feel like they represent something more spiritual.
Yes. The white lilies symbolize purity, clarity, and spiritual understanding. They represent the higher aspects of our being and the wisdom that can guide us on our path.
So it's like the magician is integrating both their earthly desires and their spiritual aspirations, bringing them into harmony.
That's a beautiful way to put it. The magician reminds us that we are not just physical beings, but also spiritual beings having a human experience.
This is all very inspiring.
Yeah.
But we can't ignore the shadow side of the magician,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there's always potential for imbalance.
You're right. It's important to acknowledge that one of the articles you shared really emphasized the dual nature of the magician's power.
Yeah.
It can be used for both good and ill.
So what are some of the potential pitfalls or like negative expressions of the magician archetype? How can things go wrong?
Well, as we discussed, the reversed magician in a reading can suggest manipulative tendencies, using power for selfish gain. It can also point to a lack of self-awareness that can lead to, unintended negative consequences.
Like the magician gone rogue,
Exactly.
using their skills to deceive or control others rather than to like create and inspire.
Exactly. It's a reminder that we all have the potential for both light and shadow within us. True power lies in recognizing and integrating our shadow side, consciously choosing to use our abilities for good.
And remembering that double-pointed wand,
Mm-hmm.
it signifies creation and destruction, not just in the outside world, but within ourselves too.
Precisely. We have the power to create positive change, but also to perpetuate negative patterns if we're not careful. The magician challenges us to become masters of our own inner alchemy, transforming those limitations into strengths.
Okay, now that's a really powerful image. Now, I know we talked about Hermes,
Mm-hmm.
but are there any other figures or stories that really capture this magician energy for you?
One figure that comes to mind is Prometheus, the Titan who stole fire from the gods and gave it to humanity. He empowered us with knowledge and creativity.
Yeah, like Prometheus, the magician is kind of defying limitations.
Yes.
Harnessing the elements to create something new and transformative.
Exactly, but both faced consequences for their actions. Prometheus was punished, and the magician is constantly aware of the responsibility that comes with wielding such power.
Right. Power without wisdom can be a dangerous thing, whether you're a mythical titan or a tarot archetype.
Yeah.
Speaking of wisdom, what about the shaman archetype? I feel like there's some similarities there.
Oh, you're picking up on some really interesting connections. In many cultures, the shaman is a bridge between the physical and spiritual realms. They are healers, Visionaries and masters of energy.
Yeah, like the magician, they seem to understand the interconnectedness of everything and use their knowledge to bring balance and healing to the world.
Exactly. And both often work with rituals, symbols, and altered states of consciousness to access hidden knowledge and affect change in both the seen and unseen realms.
I'm realizing that the magician archetype shows up everywhere, from ancient myths to modern-day innovators and changemakers.
That's the beauty of archetypes. They speak to something deep within us, reflecting universal patterns and truths.
Wow, we've definitely covered some serious mystical knowledge today.
Yeah.
But I have one last question for you before we wrap up.
Yeah.
We've talked about the magician's tools and their power and even their shadow side. But if someone's, feeling lost or lacking direction, how can they actually connect with this archetype and bring that magician energy into their everyday life?
That's a question we all face at some point, The beauty of the magician is that it reminds us we're not just, along for the ride.
Right.
We have the power to shape our own experiences, to create our own magic.
So it's less about finding a magic wand
Yeah.
and more about recognizing we already possess the tools.
Exactly. And just as the magician prepares their table with intention,
Right.
we need to get clear about what we want to manifest in our lives.
Yeah.
What are our goals? What do we truly desire?
So it starts with defining our own personal toolkit
Yes.
and then setting the stage for our intentions to take shape.
Precisely. And once we have that clarity, the magician urges us to take action. It's not enough to just dream. We need to start taking steps, even small ones, towards our goals.
It's that action speaks louder than words. Philosophy, right?
Absolutely.
The magician is all about turning ideas into reality.
Absolutely. And remember, the magician is a master of innovation. Don't be afraid to think outside the box, to explore new approaches, and to experiment with different solutions.
So it's almost like we need to embrace that childlike sense of wonder and playfulness that we talked about earlier, but with the added focus and intention of the magician.
That's a great way to put it. And don't forget, the magician is also a skilled communicator. Sometimes creating magic involves collaborating with others, sharing ideas, and seeking support when we need it.
So it's not about isolating ourselves,
No.
some solitary pursuit of magic.
No.
It's about recognizing the power of connection and community.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And lastly, don't underestimate the importance of silence and reflection. Just like the magician takes time to prepare and focus their energy,
Right?
we need to carve out space for introspection and recharge our own batteries.
This has been such an incredible journey exploring the magician.
Yeah.
I feel like we've uncovered so much more than just the symbolism on a card.
It's been a pleasure diving deep into this archetype with you. The magician truly offers us a blueprint for personal empowerment and transformation.
And for you, listening, we hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and empowered you to tap into your own inner magician. What magic lies within you waiting to be unleashed? What tools will you use to bring it into the world?
Remember, the true magic is not out there somewhere. It's within each and every one of us.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.